everybody. Super exciting episode for many reasons. First of all, welcome back to another conversation of As It Goes. I'm Lydia. We're all just figuring it out as it goes, and conversations help us along the way. So first of all, extremely exciting news from Reself. Our website is live. Yeah! Check it out. The link is in the description. Second exciting reason is this episode is kicking off a week before our pre-launch mindset workshop preview drops. July 27th, baby. Mark your calendars. Make sure that you're signed up for the wait list to get updates and receive exclusive offers. The link is also in the description for that. This episode is kicking off a full week of all things mindset, gearing us up for the big preview drop. And I wanted to take this episode as an opportunity to kind of just lay the groundworks and talk about mindset, talk about why it's so important, and really kind of, through this conversation, give you more of an inside look into Reself and how kind of all of this stuff ties in and what the workshop is really helping you do and cultivate and learn how to do self-sufficiently and just simply integrate into your way of life. For anyone who doesn't know, Reself is a synergetic platform elevating holistic well-being and personal evolution with workshops, resources, and conversations at the intersection of philosophy, science, and practices. So this conversation is going to kind of explore the philosophy and science element of what we're talking about when we talk about mindset and what we mean when we say our mindset is everything. That science is psychology, different fields of psychology, as well as neuroscience and understanding how our brains work and how they impact our mindset and thinking and all that fun jazz. So let's go. There are a few quotes that I wanted to start off with to set the tone and get us on the same wavelength. The first of which, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Buddha said that. So just let that sink in. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. This is both, right, good and bad. Neither good nor bad. It just kind of is, and we'll explore why that is. There's multiple levels to this, and again, we'll get into it. But if we're thinking negatively, consciously or subconsciously, what beliefs we have, what stories we hold about ourselves and life and everything, we're going to be that. We're going to become that. We're going to feel that way. It's going to be shown back to us in our reality. I love this idea that we don't just take in everything we see and experience, right? We also project onto it. We take in, sensory experience, right? The raw data of life. But then we also project onto it our stories, our beliefs, our ideas, our expectations, our desires. And to dive into this next quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's from psychologist Carl Jung again. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So a really big part of mindset is unearthing what is in our subconscious, our unconscious, right? What are these stories? What are these experiences that shape our mindset, that shape our state of mind, that shape these beliefs, these ideas, what we are projecting onto the world. Because when we make that conscious, when we unearth those and we honestly and compassionately look at them, observe them, understand them, we can then decide, right? Because the whole point is that we can use all of this for our own benefit, for the benefit of the people around us, for the benefit of what we do, for the benefit of the whole world, right? Because it starts with each one of us. Again, we'll get into that. But another quote, "None but ourselves can free our minds," Bob Marley. None but ourselves can free our minds. It really starts within. It starts with making that unconscious conscious. It starts with, doing the work. And, right, we have guides. We have people walking this journey with us. We have Reself. We have resources. We have books. We have podcasts. We have people in our lives that contain this wisdom as well. Or if they're not in our lives, on the internet. It's a magical place to get scrappy and find what we need that we don't already have. It starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with deciding for ourselves that this is something we want to commit to. This is something we want to put energy to. This is something that, is of value to us. Freeing your mind is, whether it sounds trivial or whether it sounds overwhelming, right? It's a fact of life that, again, with that unconscious, right? Even looking at that, we are programmed by our upbringings, by our society, by our culture, by our community, by our parents, by our families, by our friends, right? And to free your mind, to me, means to understand all of that conditioning, unpack it, and decide what is yours and what isn't yours, what is going to stay and what you reject and let go of, and release and forgive, and what you believe, what you value, what you want for the world, for yourself, for your family, for your community, and what your role is in that. Because the truth is, we have that power. We can free our own minds. We can decide what we believe, and it starts with us. Like I said, Reself, this workshop is a great opportunity to be able to do that for you without any limit, right? We can gain those skills to do it ourselves so that we can constantly, in any situation, be able to check ourselves, check our thinking, check our mindset, right? Because it's the foundation, it's everything. The next quote, it's from Tumblr. I don't know who said it. It all begins and ends in your mind. What you give power to has power over you if you allow it. Again, it all begins and ends in your mind. What you give power to has power over you if you allow it. I think this quote is also just like a tad unforgiving because, again, right, part of the whole thing with Reself is most of us aren't taught how to do this, right? Most of us are not taught how to actively participate in our well-being and our evolution as a human being, right? We're not taught the skills. We're not taught why it's important. We're not taught its benefits, again, to ourselves, to what we do, to who we interact with, to the world. And without that, right, the unconscious is directing our life and we're thinking it's kind of fate. We're thinking that we don't have control over it, right? But the reality is we do have control over it and we can choose what we give power to. We can choose to feed positivity, not toxic positivity where we ignore the negatives and we ignore the thorns within our hearts. Little reference to Keeping an Open Heart, episode 27. Link in the description. But also the fact that, again, we're programmed. So if we don't take an objective, compassionate, honest look at how we've been programmed and what's going on behind the scenes, it does have a sort of power over us. It has power over you if you allow it. I think if you understand the importance of mindset, the importance of your thinking, you can kind of maybe see some of the ways you've been programmed by, that huge list that we just said. I think that's allowing it, right? It's like ignorance, right? Once you know something, ignorance is then choosing to ignore, right? So if I know about climate change and I choose to ignore my personal impact on the planet, not trying to be sustainable where I can be, how I can be, la, la, la. That's, I think, a kind of ignorance, not acknowledging it, ignoring it. So the last quote then, a positive mindset gives you a glow from within. This is also from Tumblr. A positive mindset gives you a glow from within. Your aura radiates. Your energy becomes magnetic. A positive mindset gives you a glow from within. Your aura radiates. Your energy becomes magnetic. Now, I wanted to just add to this that, again, in the same idea of projecting our conscious and subconscious, thoughts and beliefs and la, 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 onto the world, onto our experiences. In this idea of being magnetic, right, we're also kind of attracting those same situations, right? It's not necessarily a topic I wanna go into yet. Let's save that. Put it on the back burner. We'll chat about that in the future if you're not already with me on that idea. But we can think about it like this. When we have a positive mindset, we are processing our world through that lens. And again, it's really, one of the biggest things with our mindset workshop is really about being realistic, being honest, being compassionate, being gentle with ourselves, but being realistic, right? Moving past our ego, getting deep and looking at all this stuff and being able to cultivate and actively shape our mindset how we want, in the direction that we want, to be open, to be a heart-centered mindset, to have a positive mindset, but also understand if you have a shitty day, I had a shitty day, acknowledging that, but also understanding there are at least 2 things in my day I can be grateful for. And if I focus on that, then the gratitude grows. And if I focus on that, then the positivity grows. And if I understand, as I learned in the workshop, how to set the day down and how to process my day and how to make space for that, then it's not carrying over and I can have the new day as a reset, as a restart, and it's just snowballs from there in a really positive way. So yeah. Now, I know I mentioned neuroscience, so I want to talk about this a little bit. There is a difference between brain and mind. Our brain is a physical thing. It's an organ, neuroscientifically speaking. The thing that we're kind of focusing on and understanding, the brain processes information, right? It processes information from our eyes, from our ears, from our taste buds, from our touch, from our sensory. It processes sensory information. Our mind, on the other hand, is what puts that story over that information. It's what is working out those things behind the scenes. The mind, I would put into the category of mind, heart, our soul, and then the body, not as our physical body, our physicality, our physiology, but the information that the body knows and the body processes through our nervous system. And again, through our sensory data. And they're all working together, right? And the idea is that we want to create a balance, an equilibrium. We want to create equanimity, which is constantly in flux. And it's our job to be able to understand as the the being that exists as a result of all of these different things, to be able to acknowledge our needs, our feelings, our senses, and be able to work with them and respond to them, and also cultivate the direction that we're moving and make choices and take action. So the mind then, again, we have conscious and subconscious. Conscious, for anyone, let's break down that. Conscious is what we're aware of, right? What we're conscious of. Subconscious is, again, that story, those beliefs, those deeper ideas about self, about life, about whatever, the stories we're telling ourselves, all running in the background. So let's go for an example, right? Let's say I have a fight with my parent. Family is a great example of this because families have dynamics and patterns and systems at work that are unspoken. It's our experience, but they become ingrained. We each fill a part in the system. We play a role in a sense, right? And also, it's not set in stone, especially if we exist in a family system, a family dynamic that is conscious of that and that makes it an active priority to hold space for everyone's wholeness and fluidity and, make space for people to show up differently in different ways at different times, right? Because again, right, it's all a choice. We all have a choice. It starts as an individual and then it translates out and trickles out into, our friendships, our relationships, our family. So I don't want that to come off like doomsday, this is how it is. It's going to forever be this way, because it's not, right? You might exist in a certain family dynamic or structure that you're the only person that sees certain things about it, and it's kind of difficult in that sense. The beauty is that you can decide how you want to show up, and that's what matters most. And it can be really difficult in any of those instances. And, some relationships we can walk away from, and others, it's a little more difficult to. But the point is, it's your life and you have the choice and you can choose how you want to show up and you can choose to be conscious of these things and you can choose to value these things in a way that directly translates into that stuff. And when you have your own family, if that's something you so choose, whether it's biological or whether it's the family you create with all the different people you meet and love and your friends, you have the power to decide and shape that family for yourself and what it's going to look like. And you are not predetermined to repeat same patterns and whatever. It just comes down to being conscious and then using that conscious awareness to show up differently, which, we'll get into because that's all boils down again to mindset. Hopefully you can see that in your own experience. Or think about it. Think about what is my family dynamic? What is my system? What are some of the things that go on here, right? So again, with the family example, let's say I get in an argument with my parent. Odds are, if I'm not being aware and using all my tools that I learned in the Reself Mindset workshop, I'm going to react from patterns of behavior that are stored in my subconscious that through repetition, through the family dynamic, through the system, through my role, it's kind of just going to play out as it normally plays out, unless I'm making a conscious choice to show up differently in that experience. So let's say my parent says something that I find disrespectful or undermines me as a person, right? Whatever sparks that argument or feeling. That is likely a story running in my background in my subconscious from my experiences that I have created a story around, probably from childhood, and also am continuing to tell myself and see and perpetuate. And I just want to throw in here that just because we're telling ourselves a story doesn't invalidate our experience, right? Because I don't want that to come across like this, because we're about to explain, getting from an objective point of view. But there's also the fact of the matter that really could be the experience, right? We could be telling our story that enhances the discomfort of the experience. Or we can be telling ourselves a story that's completely off from the experience. Likely, it's probably somewhere in the middle of the two, or both. But the point is, right, it's always coming back to holding space and having a choice in it, in how we respond, in not reacting, and helping ourselves to maintain our mindset, just choosing what we feed and what we believe and what we give our energy to. Because if we go then objectively to observe the situation as if we were an outsider in this whole situation, as an outsider, right? Say I'm watching this argument happen between myself and my parent. As an outsider, I can look at this and say, Leah, what are you talking about? They only said, XYZ. This is not how you are interpreting it, right? But it's our interpretation, our experience, our projection of what's going on the subconscious that affects that whole experience, right? So that's an example of how that's always working in our lives in one way or another. And when we become conscious of it, when we work to just simply recognize it and be aware of it, we can really start to have that own feedback in our lives. Not even necessarily about anyone else in our lives, simply about ourselves. And that's the whole thing. I mean, honestly, I love this stuff. I study this stuff. This is, this is my forte, right? But I have so many examples that I can think of off the top of my head recently that after it happened, I was like, bro, Lydia, what did you just say? Why are you thinking this? Why are you acting that way? We know this. We see this. What's going on here? And then I unpack it and I do the work behind it. And then I can take action in the appropriate situation and recalculate, redirect back onto my path and keeping my mindset balanced and actively cultivating it. So, like I said, so many different factors that shape our conscious and subconscious thoughts, beliefs, patterns of behavior, stories, ideas, perceptions, mindset, and state of mind. With mindset, the whole idea, mindset, what our mind is set at, what we set our mind at. Because there's two things there. There's two running lines that eventually can cross. They're not parallel. They cross perpendicularly, and at that intersection, we then can take the road of setting our minds instead of having our mind set for us by other people, circumstances, la la la. We are not a victim of our circumstances. We are not a victim of our upbringing, all of those things, because we can make it so that we do what we need to set our mindset that works for us instead of works against us. And this point, I remember something where maybe I was in 7th or 8th grade. On my desk, I had a list of things. I don't even remember what they were. Kind of like affirmations, I guess you could say. But it was just things I held to be truths in my life or that I wanted to try to uphold and whatever. And in my own way, that was me actively cultivating a mindset and actively choosing who I show up to be as, because we have that choice as well. We're not predestined to be anything or anyone or, again, the victim of our upbringing, of our circumstances, whatever. We can change, we can choose. And that's an equally important thing to recognize. With neuroscience, One thing we talk about in the workshop is called neuroplasticity, which is our brain's ability to rewire itself. Our brain can literally rewire its way of thinking and thought patterns and make new pathways, and that is a beautiful thing. That's huge, especially I think for anyone who feels like they're stuck in the way that they think. You don't have to be. It's like walking a path in the grass. When we repeatedly think something, a version of, say, I'm not good enough, maybe because we picked that up from someone telling us that, not even from our own thinking, we walk that pathway, we continue to exercise that thought in whatever circumstance. This person isn't my friend because I'm not good enough. This, situation happened because I'm not good enough. I didn't get that job because I'm not good enough. No. What if we thought this didn't happen because it's not aligned with me? I didn't get that job because there's something better for me that aligns with my purpose more. So it's simply a matter of choosing to walk different pathways and actively walking those new pathways over and over again until they become our pathways, which is what the workshop is all about. That's exactly what it's going to help you with. And it's emphasized by Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. If you're not familiar with that story, 10 out of 10 recommend it. Viktor Frankl, he's a psychologist. It's all about his therapy called logotherapy, and it's his experience as a prisoner in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany during World War II. And of a lot of the things that he talks about, his whole idea is that, and experience, right? That I think is the example to the nth degree of what we're talking about, right? And his whole experience, he details how we can choose our mindset. And he talks about, through his experience in that book, what he observed, psychologically speaking, from prisoners about their mindsets and how it impacted their experiences as prisoners in these camps. And all about how important our mindset is and what we can do and how it will impact us incredibly to choose a positive mindset and to not just choose, but to cultivate, to actively cultivate and practice, because it's a practice, right? Like I said, I have so many examples that I can think of off the top of my head that I could have done better at. I could have showed up better. I learned from them, right? I've learned from them. I reflected on them. I see it. I see what the patterns are from, the subconscious. I see what's playing out here from all the different factors. And that's part of the practice, is unpacking all of it. That book is linked in the description. I 10 out of 10 recommend it. I'll also link Hardcore Literature's episode on it. There's no substitute for the book, but if you can't get your hands on the book, at least listen to that podcast. Especially, I think, if you feel like you're struggling with your mindset, with your thoughts, with your emotions, with meaning in your life, with gratitude, with whatever, listen to that podcast, read the book. It's incredible. So we can create and cultivate our mindset. We can create and cultivate our lives. And it starts with our mindset. The Buddha told us, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Cultivating and creating our lives in our authentic image, right? Which is ultimately what Reself is helping us do, to create and live authentically, freely, free from conditions, free from past experiences, and not a floating on air kind of situation, but really understanding the psychology and the science and the practices that do help us do this. And it all starts in our minds with our subconscious and conscious thoughts. So I thought that we would explore this topic a little more by touching on the lessons in the Reself Mindset Workshop, which again, the link is in the description to sign up for updates and receive exclusive offers. This workshop is a self-paced experience that empowers your active role in creating your life in your authentic image, wherever you are on your journey, beginning at the fundamental level of your mind. You will be guided through a deep dive into your thoughts, beliefs, and patterns of behavior and learn how to self-sufficiently cultivate and integrate a mindset of your choosing. In real life, outside of the platform, you are learning solid wisdom and practices to go forth and prosper with. So let's dive into these lessons and just explore. Each lesson builds on the last, and they're all different elements and concepts, ideas that contribute to what we're doing in cultivating our mindset. The first is thinking, understanding the impact and inner workings behind your thoughts to empower your active role in shaping your mind. As we already emphasized, our thoughts are extremely important. There's a lot to unpack, both consciously and subconsciously, to get a sense of where we're at. Obviously, our feelings, state of mind, etc., communicate to us what's going right, what's going wrong, what's working, what's not working. But sometimes we don't know how to respond to these feelings, to these cues. Again, if we're walking a really harmful path and we aren't even aware of it, that's where we kind of have to start, is just taking a gauge of where we're at, what's going on, getting a sense of the subconscious playing behind the scenes. And then we move on to the second concept, which is awareness. If you're familiar with any Buddhist philosophy, you will be familiar with the concept of awareness, mindfulness. Mindfulness is, a huge buzzword these days, but understanding what it means to be aware and to be present is the first step in this. As I said in the beginning of our conversation, being aware, just noticing, being present enough to notice and witness and observe our own patterns, our own tendencies, our own thoughts, our own speech, our own actions, our own patterns of behavior. And then being able to, if it's your first time, understanding what it is to be in the seat of awareness, or whether you're familiar with it, and being able to constantly reposition and recalibrate yourself in that seat of awareness. This is the fundamental step in shifting your thinking, your mindset, and your experience. Because we are simply awareness. We are a being of awareness. Our whole organism, our body, our mind, our brain, everything, our senses are all taking in raw experience. We are aware of both the experience and ourself. So being able to, if it's the first time you're ever consciously getting into that seat, or if you're learning how to constantly get into that seat, it's the fundamental step in not only your mindset, but again, shifting your experience, shifting your whole life, right? One thing that I think is confusing for people when we start talking about this, right, is talking about our experience of our personal reality. And the fact of the matter is, again, like I said, with our subconscious especially, but also our conscious, with our mindset and our state of mind, it is directly impacting our experience of our life. It is also directly shaping our experience of our life, our personal reality, right? Again, we could have the objective viewer watching someone's life, and we could have the person experiencing that life, and the two observations, the two stories, the two experiences would be completely different, right? Because it really depends on all those things that we talked about that's running behind in the experiencer's world. The other point is that we are both of those things in our own life, right? Again, like I said, at the fundamental level, we are simply awareness. So we are also the observer in our own experience. So by cultivating that and understanding that as the fundamental place from which everything blossoms, we can go back to that place, cultivate that awareness, and then act in accordance with that, and also be our own helping hand, where we can say, no, Lydia, this is what's going on here. This is what you're telling yourself. And this is how it's impacting your experience. This is how it's impacting your whole reality, right? Your whole experience of reality, and how it's twisting it. Next, the third lesson looks at overthinking. Overthinking, fear, and worry distort our mindset and experience. So learning how to overcome these tendencies in your thoughts and experiences is hugely important. This is an example of 3 different common things that are happening behind the scene that are really important to understand and address, right? Again, if we're going from that level of awareness and we're learning how, when I notice myself, when I'm aware of myself overthinking, when I'm aware of myself acting out of fear or not acting because of fear, or when I'm worrying beyond my control, right? It is also my job and my role and my privilege to be able to help myself away from those tendencies, to not just say, no, don't do that, but to understand how I can talk to myself, befriend myself, which is a huge part of our mindset. And this workshop is befriending ourselves. I can move away and overcome those tendencies, whether they're huge tendencies or whether they just pop up here and there. And I can understand when and where they pop up. The next lesson, 4th lesson, thoughts to words. The words you speak become the house you live in. Learn how to make it beautiful, intentional, and authentic. Our words reflect how we think. Our words are expressions of our thoughts. There's a Lao Tzu quote. We've shared it on the Instagram before as well. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. It's all interconnected. It's all a chain reaction. And so by working at the fundamental of thoughts and mindset, conscious, subconscious mind, we're getting at the root, and we're making that whole chain intentional, cultivated in the direction we want it to go. Versus, again, like Carl Jung's quote, the unconscious directing our lives and calling it fate, directing all of those elements on that link, being unaware of them. Beyond that, our words move into that next level of our impact on people, right? Because, it's one thing, right? Our thoughts and our thinking, conscious and subconscious, right? They're all just impacting us. But then our words, our actions, character, habit, that also involves other people, right? And it's a fundamental aspect of life that we're interacting with people, right? So by consciously choosing who we want to show up as, what we stand for, what we value, our words are either going to be in alignment or unaligned from, that choice. And it's also a great place to start if you're not really sure what's going on behind the scenes in your mind. Look at how you're talking to people. Do you gossip about people? Do you speak completely honestly, or are you kind of like surface level? How are you speaking? In the 4 agreements, we reference this in the workshop by Don Miguel Ruiz. Again, if you haven't read that book, link is in the description. 10 out of 10 recommend. It's a great starting place. And even if it's not a starting place, but the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. to speak with integrity, to say only what you mean, to avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others, and to use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love, right? Because just like our thoughts, our words are setting a tone, are setting a stage, are projecting. Fifth lesson, open mind. Openness allows you to flow with and access all the limitless possibilities of life, and it begins, again, in your mind. So we can discover just how open we can be as we cultivate and strengthen an open mind. This is pretty huge, both on an individual and interpersonal level, societal level. Openness is a really essential part of it, of our mindset, right? Of having a positive mindset. Because if we are closed in our thinking, if we have a fixed mindset about certain things, if we say something common, right? This is a common one. This is one I had to overcome with myself, right? This is a great example. I've been explicit on here about this. In high school, I had an abusive relationship, right? A belief I formed from that unconsciously was that all men are shit or all men are bad. This is one, ladies, gentlemen, my non-binary friends, you might have heard this in your own life, in your own way. All girls are bad. Humans are bad. It's just not true, right? Because even if you have a hard time believing it, there is one good person in the world. You know what I mean? Like, there is one person you can name that is a good person. We all are good and bad, right? It's just life. And the point of the matter is, right? So that was a mindset I had unconsciously about my dating experience, about the gentlemen, the boys rather, that I was interacting with. And that was also what was getting shown back to me, right? I was hanging out with guys that fulfilled that belief. Again, unconscious. I remember a friend told me, like, don't say that. It's not true. And I fought back at her about it. And I was like, bro, how can you tell me that? Like, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know my experience. You don't know how true that is to me. And that's part of the point, is it's relative, right? But part of my cultivating my mindset and my unpacking this stuff is unpacking that belief, understanding where it first started to show up in my life, why, and then healing it, right? Looking to, again, from my experience, from my example, looking to men in my life that uphold my idea of what an ideal partner would be for me, or what an ideal father looks like, or what a good man with a good heart is, and holding on to those examples. And even if for you see them on the internet, like you watch some YouTuber and you see that good guy or good girl or person that you vibe with, that you feel like understands you, and you might not have immediate access to someone like that, but even just through the internet, that person exists. Well, then you can begin to make space for that in your life, for your experience to reflect that, you are then opening yourself up to the fact that these people exist, and you are open to meeting those people because you uphold the belief that they exist, that they are in your life, and then it starts to show. Again, right? It's all about what's also going on behind the scene. So it might be a more trivial example, I don't know, but it's an important example, right? Because even with, something like dating, mindset really matters with that as well. And it's a huge thing. I wouldn't say dating, I would more say relationships, but our relationships, right, are impacted by our experience, obviously not only our dating experience, but also by our parents, right? Those are the first two models of our relationships. And both between our parents, if they were both around, if one was missing, if one, was absent, or they were divorced, or whatever, how they treated us. All of that is subconsciously stored and imprinted, and then running beliefs and ideas in the background. So when we can, again, just be objective, hold space for the truths of that experience, while also understanding what it is that we want and value and what is important for us, that's all that. And finally, our last lesson, nurturing the garden. Our mind is a garden. Our thoughts are the seeds. We can grow flowers or we can grow weeds. So learning how to, again, like we've been talking about, continually nourish our mindset throughout the day, because it just breaks down to the daily level, right? Because what we do each day becomes our habits, becomes our rituals, becomes our routine. And it's not about making huge, overwhelming action, 3 hours a day. It's really just simply small daily actions that we do to recalibrate, to respond rather than react, to stay on our path and empower our well-being and our continual, endless evolution as human beings. There are a number of practices that are involved in that you can decide what works for you, what doesn't, that you can constantly try and learn new ones, explore, learn more stuff about all this jazz. I mean, that's kind of like a specific lesson, but it's the whole idea, it's the whole principle, right? It just comes down to what we do every day. It's an Aristotle quote. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. So having a good mindset, having a positive mindset, cultivating our mindset is not an act, right? It's not a huge gesture. It's just a habit. It's what we do every day as part of our daily life, as part of our way of life, as part of our way of being and taking care of ourselves. It's self-care. It's self-love. It's self-mastery. We are filling all of those roles. We are nurturing ourselves. We are responding to ourselves. We are healing ourselves. We are evolving ourselves. We are taking action in the direction of our dreams and living authentically and unpacking all of that good stuff behind it, as well as nurturing and nourishing and enjoying our lives. That's all for now, folks. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for nourishing your mind with this conversation, for feeding your soul. Like I said, this is our first pre-launch workshop preview. It drops July 27th. Make sure you're signed up for email updates. You'll receive an exclusive offer on the workshop. And make sure you're following us on Instagram to keep updated, nourish your well-being. If you participate in social media, get some good vibes, good energy, keep feeding the soul, feeding the spirit, moving in that good direction. Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, whatever floats your boat. Make sure you check out our website. Everything is up there. You can also explore in the interim until the workshop drops a ton of resources in our library, from books to videos, conversations, graphics, tools, tons of goodies to explore. That's all free, intentionally curated. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.